Today we are going to go over the commandments, the tablets, particularly the tablets. What are on these two tablets? What do we know about these tablets? What does the scripture say about these tablets? A lot of people think that they are just these tablets. They are made of stone. They look gray. They look like this. They only have 10 words or 10 things on them. But if you would look into the Hebrew language and you would look at what the Hebrew language is, it might surprise you that just 2 words is a whole sentence. It might surprise you of what we have added to, where he says don't add to or take away. It might surprise you of what this actually is, right? So we know that Shavuot was the beginning of the Torah, of when he gave them the Torah. Now, by this, what we have to go to the scriptures and see what the scripture says. Again, the majority of Christians think that the commandments is being inscribed on 2 gray stones. However, Judaism, the Rabbinical, the Talmud, the Mishnah teaches that the tablets of law were made of sapphire, a blue stone, right? Sapphire. Now, what we have to do is when we make claims, we have to find this in the scripture. We have to know what we're talking about. The problem is churchianity don't seem to have to do that. Churchianity says it's this, and people just say, well, yeah, that seems fair, and that's all we have to end the story. But when we are really searching the scripture, we have to find what was really being said. Now, Exodus 24:10, there was under his feet as it were a pavement of sapphire stone, like the very heaven for clearness. Did you hear what that said? Like the very heaven for clearness. These were like a clear blue sapphire stone. Probably a very, very beautiful stone, right? Moshe and the rest of Israel's leadership were given the profound privilege of seeing these, of having these, of getting them from Yahweh himself. Yahweh appeared in the person of the Son as he expresses Yahweh's image to man. John 1:18, 14:9. Under Yahweh's feet was something that appeared to be sapphire. The Hebrew kaphanar pronounced sapphire, right? So the blue stone can either be translated as a sapphire or the lapis lazuli. It is from this pavement that Yahweh carved out the tablets which upon he wrote the law as it recorded in Exodus 24:12. So he gave them from his very finger these tablets. Now, if we go on, it is even a distinct possibility tablets were carved from the throne, considering Ezekiel 1:26. Above the expanse over the heads was something like a throne, resembling a sapphire stone. Above the shape of the throne was a figure of a human appearance. The figure upon this throne was a likeness of the glory of Yahweh, Ezekiel 1:28. We have to know what we're talking about. Again, I would submit to you many times we come to churchianity, we come to service, and we don't have to really know anything. We just kind of take everything for granted. We just take whatever they tell us, and that's what it is. Well, you know, it was this, and it's called the 10 Commandments. Wait a minute. Where does it say that? Where does it say there's 10 Commandments? Where, if we think about things, if we would just think about them, we would find out that what? 10 Commandments you can teach to a child in a day, correct? So why in the world would it take 40 days and nights for Moshe to learn these? Why would he go and teach the people? We have to do a little bit of thinking when we talk of what we're talking of. We have to apply a little bit of reason to what's being said. Again, churchianity is like the only thing that we can go and we don't have to think. Everything else we have to think about. Everything else. But wait a minute, the scripture says to do what? To meditate, to think on these things, to rightly divide. Yahweh said to Moshe, speak to the children of Israel and tell them to make tassels on the corners of their gardens throughout their generations, on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and to put a cord of blue on the tassel of each corner. And it shall be a tassel for you to look at and remember all the commandments of Yahweh, to do them, not to follow after your own heart and your own eyes, which you are inclined to whore after. What do? We get a great idea, and that's what we're going to do. We get a grand idea, and there's no stopping us. Yahweh says to put these what? Put these tassels on the corner of our clothes, that we would remember to do all the commandments. If there's only 10, why do we need a cord? Why do we need something to remind us? Why do we need that? Because there's 613. It's a lifelong journey. It's a lifelong teaching. It's a lifelong living this. Not to come sit on the pew. The tablets, the instructions of what we're going to do. It's amazing that he made them out of stone, and he says we have a stony heart. It's amazing that he says I will take your stony heart away. But what is he talking about later, when we will know these? Right? Because does people know them? People say, well, I'm a Christian. I have, okay, what's the fourth commandment, and why don't you keep it then? If you have been replaced, your stony heart, Mr. Churchianity, Mr. Pastor, Mr. Prophet, Mr. whatever they call themselves, if you have a fleshly heart and the law is written upon your heart and your stony heart, then what is the fourth commandment? What do you mean you don't know? Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. There's the fourth commandment. So people don't even keep the commandments that they try to say they keep. The big 10, brother, you got to keep the big 10. But the fourth commandment, very few people keep. Keep the Sabbath day. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. This is a covenant between me and you. But yet they don't even keep their own commandments. No wonder we don't know the tables. We don't know what's written on them. We don't know how many there is, because we don't even keep number 4. How are we going to get to 613 if we can't do number 4? Impossible, right? Impossible to sit down and say, well, it's all done away with. No, sin is not done away with. You see funerals, you see the graveyards, you see people still going to them, then sin and death is not done away with. Sin and death have to be done away with before we can ever worry about the law being done away with. Because the law teaches us sin. Sin causes death. See how that works out? So the Torah explains and enjoins us to regarding the Taliet, because the Taliet resembles the sapphire. You see the reoccurring thing here? We look up, we see blue. We look around, he tells us to put this blue sapphire upon us. What would we do? If you know an orange is orange, and you see an orange and you think of orange, and you see something else orange, what do you think of? He knows the way we think. He made us. So wouldn't it be perfectly perfect to make the sapphire stones, and you look up and you see the blue sky, you look down and you see the tassels on you, and you look around, and we're supposed to have tassels around us. So if you look around and you see people wearing these tassels, you remember the blue sapphire. Make sense? Of course it does. Remember the commandments. If you have any kind of knowledge, You know the commandments were made out of a blue sapphire stone. Therefore, when you look at your seats, or you see someone else's seats, you know the blue represents the tablets. Right? As easy as child's play. But somehow we've went and done everything so completely backwards, we don't even know. We look and see somebody and they got tassels, and we think of Elvis, or we think of something else, or we don't know what's going on. What's wrong with this guy wearing these tassels? What's up with that? What's going on? Right? So the tables were made of the sapphire to tell you that as long as Israel gaze upon the Taliet, they are reminded of what is inscribed on the tablets, and we observe and do the commandments. You see how that all goes together? Therefore it is written, and you shall see it, the Taliet string, and remember all the commandments of Yahweh, and you shall do them. Ain't that amazing how this works together? Isn't it amazing how the scriptures go together when we believe, when we do, when we listen to the Creator? If we're not careful, we don't listen, we don't know what's going on, so therefore what happens to us? We just kind of get lost. We just kind of find out, I don't know what to do, right? Micah 6 and 8, He has told you, O man, what is good. Everything that's not on the list of what's good needs to be left alone. We're too worried about what we can do. We're too worried about what we can get away with, if you will, right? Can I get away from this? Can I touch the stove? Can I touch this? We're too rebellious to worry about what we should be doing. Don't touch that. And it just rips you apart to not touch it. Here, don't grab my pen. Don't touch my pen. And as soon as you walk out of the room, somebody in there has to put their fingers on your pen. What does that show you? You're rebellious. You have a problem. You do. Well, it's your fault, because if you would have said, don't touch my pen, I wouldn't even know. Not the way it works, folks. That's the enemies of the Most High. That's your enemies. That is not the way it works. You don't make a commandment and say, well, if the tree wasn't there, they would have never ate of it. Well, if this wasn't there, they would have never did that. Well, if I didn't have this, and on it goes. That ain't the way this works at all. Because eventually, no matter what you do, you gotta have some kind of rules. Right? Do you have rules at your house? Do you have rules at your work? Can you go to work naked? Why not? Because you would get hurt. Something would happen. Somebody would get in trouble. There would be all kinds of problems. But, well, why can't I just walk around naked at work then? Well, why can't you? We all know, but sadly we have to get more and more extreme with this, because if we don't get more and more extreme with this, what happens? People don't get it. They don't understand. They don't really get what's going on anymore. They just kind of say, oh, well, if you wouldn't have put me in that position. No. Has nothing to do with the position. It's got everything to do with you. When we take ourselves and make ourselves okay, that's the problem. Well, if I wouldn't have been at the bar, well, if I wouldn't have been in the car, well, if I wouldn't have been, who put you there? We've yet to see a demonic fallen come and put a gun to anybody's head and drag them into the bar and say, now get drunk. And even if they did, you got a chance to go to the bathroom, you got a chance to go out, you got a chance to say a prayer, you got a chance to call upon Yahweh. Right? The problem becomes we don't want the instructions. Most people do not want them, and they're happy to say, that's done away with, this is done away with, and make up their own religion. 2 John verse 9 says, if anyone goes too far and does not abide in the teaching of the Messiah, if you don't abide in his teachings, then what do you have? Now, it might surprise you that the Messiah said, if you love me, keep my commandments. Where do we find the commandments? On the tables of stone. right? On the sapphire stone. We have to do what he says to do. 1 Corinthians 10:11 says, "Now these things happened to them as an example, and they were written for our instruction, upon whom the ends of the ages have come." If you're not careful, you become an example of why you don't do that. You become an example of why you don't touch my pen. You become an example of why you don't do, because eventually something has to give. We know that, right? You can tell your child, don't touch the stove. Don't touch the stove. Don't touch the stove. They're a baby. You can keep them from it. They can't hardly walk. You can keep them from touching that stove, correct? It ain't till they get a little bit older and you start having a little trust and you start saying, okay, they understand not to touch the stove. I've told them 1,000,000 times. You touch the stove, it hurts. You touch the stove, you're going to get burnt. You touch the stove, you're not going to like it. Now, eventually, we all know either you're a hard-head, rebellious at heart, or you're not. Some people are just not going to touch the stove. Hey, I've seen mom get burnt. I've seen people get burnt. I see flames. I'm just going to go with the obvious. They cook stuff on there and I hear sizzling. I'll just stay away from that thing. I ain't got to learn it. But you know how many people have to put their hand on the stove. What does that tell you? What are we being showed? From a child, we know who we are. From a child, we know what's inside. We know our own thoughts. But yet, we want to blame everybody and the stove. If the stove wasn't hot, I wouldn't have been burnt. Ain't got nothing to do with it. We have to take the illogical, crazy choice out of our life. And that illogical, crazy choice is usually your thoughts. It's usually what you're talking about. It's usually what we don't understand, or we think so much that we can just say a prayer and it's done away with, that we don't have to listen to the tables. We don't want to hear the tables of stone. We don't like what's on them. We don't want to be told what to do, and that stems from everything of what I'm saying. It's a rebellious that you don't want to be told what to do. You just don't want to hear it, and everything about you screams, I'm going to do this my way. Now, if you start looking up fallen, you'll probably start falling. Get it? You'll probably start learning where you're getting this from. What is enticing you? What is pushing you? Which demon, demonic, fallen are you listening to? A lot of people don't understand when he fell, there was a third of the angels, right? A lot of people don't understand that in Noah's days, and they don't understand the Nephilim and what was going on, and how many was actually about, and how many are still about. When we have the mentality of there's only one, then that's all we're worried about. And we're deceived, and the craftiness and the evilness has overtaken us because we don't realize what we're even fighting against, or what we're doing. Right? Psalms 18:34. He trains my hands for war so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. If we are not ready for war, we are ready for anything. If we don't think we're in a war, then we have lost the battle. Right? How do we know what's going on? We don't. We don't read. We don't get it. Psalms 82:4. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. How can we do that? Here's the truth. Here's the tables. Here's the instructions. Why does almost everybody upon everybody want to say the law's done away with? Why does almost every church system tell you you don't have to keep the law? You're not part of that. You're not in that covenant. You're not that person. You don't have to do that. Why would you do that? When Yahweh says, these laws and statutes are forever. He gave them to Moshe, and I would submit to you, he gave them to Moshe because man had lost his mind, so to speak. I believe Adam knew every commandment. He knew the Torah, and he never broke it. Abraham had to know the instructions, the Torah, or why would he keep the feast days? Why would he do sacrifices? How would he know how? You have to understand, you don't just come out and start killing animals and making fires because somebody thinks there's something wrong with you. But when you start doing what Yahweh said, oh, wait a minute, you're right. Adam was counted to righteousness for doing what Yahweh said. How could that be? It can only be he knew the 613 commandments. It's just the thing is, nobody was breaking them. Nobody had the nerve, if you will, or the demonic or the fallen or anything about them to break the commandments. Why would you? Do you want to die? We've seen what happened in the garden. We've seen what happened when we disobey. We see what happens, death and destruction and blood and death. And now we die. Good job. And you can't say, oh, well, you know, the serpent, and you know what? Eve did it. Again, the stove, it wasn't the stove's fault. Yes, the stove burnt you, but you put your hand there. Eve could have said nope. Adam prayed, called to Yahweh. She could have done many other things, but she didn't. She just went along, right? How many people are just going along, but they don't even know what's at stake? Even knowing we see death, even though we see funerals, even though we can listen and hear, today this person died and they was 90, and this person died and they was 17, this person died and they was 3. It seems like we would get the concept of it's not the stove's fault. It's not the commandment's fault. It's our fault. Right? Stop trying to do away with the thing that is to help you. The commandments, the tablets, the instructions are good for you. So you know not to put your hand in the stove. Don't stick your head in the oven. Oh, that's a stupid thing. Everybody should stick their head in the oven. Don't make any sense, does it? But that's the same thing that church after church, pastor after wolfy pastor tries to tell us, that you don't have to listen to your Creator. That's what they're really saying. Exodus 15:3. Yahweh is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. We have to know what he sent to us, what he has for us, what he says to us, and what these tables are really meaning. They are great laws. Everybody that got a hold of these thought these was awesome, because this is what Yahweh wants. This is Yahweh speaking to us. This is in stone, right? Why do we put the engraving on the stone on graves? Because you don't want somebody coming and defiling the grave and saying, oh, they was born in 1200. They was born in... No, we want a marker to know when they lived, when they died. If somebody went out there and scratched that off and said, I don't need this, I don't even know them, and kicked a stone over, you would be upset. Why would somebody do a thing? But we want to go to church and throw away the stones. The very essence of who we are. The 613 mitzvah. Right? The earliest extent of us knowing what truth is. The earliest extent on tablets, on stone, of us knowing the difference between right and wrong. Because when we pick right and wrong, what are we going to do? Well, I think right is this. I think right is that. And before you know it, we got a bunch of different rights and a bunch of different things that we really don't know what's talking about, right? And in this blessing wherewith Moshe, the man of Elohim, blessed the children of Israel before his death. And he said, Yahweh came from Sinai, and rose from Seir unto them. And he shined forth from Mount Paran, and he came from the Merid's holy. At his right hand was a fiery law unto them. The law is a good thing. All those who do what he says shall be blessed. All those who do what Yahweh says are going to have life. If you go against the tablets, if you don't even want to learn about them, then what does that say? We don't even want to keep a minimum. Most people, again, like I said in the beginning, don't even keep the Sabbath day. Number 4. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Exodus 24:12, and Yahweh said to Moshe, come up to me in the mount, and be there, and I will give thee tables of stone, and a law, and commandments which I have written. People say, I don't believe the Bible because it's written by man. Yahweh says right here that I'm giving you the tablets. If you don't believe the Bible because man has touched it, has tampered with it, you should be the executioner of the law. You should have 613 commandments in your hand at all times. But yet, somehow, we don't, right? Yet somehow we've let people take the very commandments that Yahweh says he gave to us. And a law and commandments which I have written, that thou mayest teach them. There you go. I mean, he wrote on them himself. He gave them the commandments. I mean, how else can we not listen to him? How else can we stick our head in the oven and think it's okay? On what dimension do you live in that you think you can do away with Yahweh has written down to give to you, the Creator? Do you really think that he said, we shouldn't even repeat silliness like that? Do you think he really went against what he said to do? We have to go with the scriptures. Leviticus 27:34. These are the commandments that Yahweh commanded Moshe for the people of Israel on Mount Sinai. These is what Yahweh said is sin. What's funny, when you add up the 613, what do you get? 10. 6 and 3 and 1 is 10. So I wonder who came along and said, oh, well, we only got to do this. We only got to do that. Exodus 20:2. They were given directly by Yahweh. I mean, we have to be very careful when we go to anything other than what he says. And Yahweh spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahweh, thy Elohim, who brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee a graven image, nor any manner of likeness of anything that is in heaven, or that is in earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Right here, real quickly, we find out we're breaking commandments. If you have a dolphin, a fish, a image of a person, a golfer, a scuba diver, whatever, if you have an image of Scuba Steve standing on your mantle, this says, thou shalt not make unto thee a graven image. A graven image is something made by the hands of man. It's an image, and it tells us, nor any manner of likeness, that is anything in heaven, so no birds, no clouds, no anything in heaven, no angels, no thrones, none of the stuff from heaven, or, and that's Shelliam, or that is in the earth beneath. So nothing that we see that Yahweh has made are we to create. No flowers, no making flowers, no graving images. Not saying you can't have flowers. I'm saying you cannot remake them because Yahweh's already made them. Make sense? Or that is in the water under the earth. Again, no fish, no dolphins, none of this. So real quickly, why they want to do away with the commandments with the tables of stone is because you're breaking almost everything that's on them. So until next time, read your scripture. Come to the 613 commandments. Learn them, and know they was written on sapphire stone. So until next time, may Yahweh bless you. May his kindness shine upon you, and may he grant you shalom. Shalom, and thank you very much for listening. Have a great and wonderful, beautiful day. Shalom, and Yahweh bless.